When Madison handed me the seating chart for her wedding, I almost laughed at the irony. Table 12, wedged between the kitchen doors and the service corridor, with the plus ones we barely know, as she called them. My own sister had deemed me unworthy of sitting with family, apparently forgetting that the company sponsoring the open bar, the one whose logo was discreetly embossed on every napkin and program, belonged to me. But Madison had no idea that Richardson Digital Solutions, the tech consulting firm she'd convinced our parents to hit up for wedding sponsorship, was the company I'd built from scratch in my one-bedroom apartment 8 years ago. What she also didn't know was that the $150,000 she was spending on this lavish Belle Meade Country Club affair came from my inheritance, the trust fund our grandmother Eleanor had left specifically for me to expand my business. Our parents had sold everything, stock portfolio and all, convinced by Madison that she deserved a fairy tale wedding more than I deserved to honor our grandmother's wishes for my company's growth. I sat at table 12 without complaint, watching. My sister float around in her custom Vera Wang gown, accepting congratulations from Nashville's social elite, blissfully unaware that her perfect day was funded by my legacy and sponsored by my success. Tomorrow morning, Richardson Digital Solutions would receive the final invoice for the wedding expenses, and I would be the one signing the check. But tonight, I was just Emma, the antisocial sister who chose computers over connections, hidden in the shadows while Madison basked in the spotlight she'd always craved. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. The morning I found the empty folder where my inheritance documents should have been was the same morning Madison burst into my downtown loft apartment, wedding dress samples draped over her arms like designer battle flags. She didn't knock, never had, assuming my space was an extension of hers, just like everything else in our family. "Emma, thank God you're here," she breathed dramatically, spreading tulle and silk across my minimalist living room furniture. "I need your opinion on these dresses, and Mom said you'd probably be working anyway, so I figured I'd just swing by." I stared at her, then at the legal documents scattered across my coffee table. Documents that should have contained details about the $500,000 trust fund our grandmother had established for me before her death 2 years ago. Instead, I held papers showing that my parents had liquidated every asset in the trust just last week. "Madison," I said carefully, setting down the papers, "do you know anything about grandmother's trust fund?" She barely glanced up from the wedding dresses, holding a strapless mermaid silhouette against her frame. "Oh, that old thing? Mom and Dad finally did something useful with it. They're funding my wedding instead of letting it sit around gathering dust." She twirled slightly, admiring her reflection in my floor-to-ceiling windows. "Don't you think this one makes me look like a princess?" The casual dismissal hit me like a physical blow. That old thing. Grandmother Eleanor's life savings. Carefully invested and set aside specifically for my business development. Dismissed as if it were pocket change. Madison, that money was meant for my company expansion. Grandmother's will explicitly stated, "Your company?" She laughed, dropping the dress onto my white leather sofa. "Emma, you run a little tech consulting thing from your apartment. It's not like you're building the next Apple. Besides, a wedding is a once-in-a-lifetime event, and Tyler's family expects a certain level of sophistication. The Morrisons have connections throughout Nashville's business community, and this wedding is essentially a networking event that could benefit all of us." I felt my jaw clench as I watched my sister rearrange my living space to accommodate her dress selection process. Madison had always possessed this remarkable ability to reframe reality to suit her needs. My little tech consulting thing employed 150 people, generated $50 million in annual revenue, and had just landed a contract with the largest healthcare system in Tennessee. But in Madison's world, success was measured in social media followers and invitation acceptances, not profit margins and client satisfaction. When did you and Mom and Dad discuss this? I asked, genuinely curious about when my family had decided to redistribute my inheritance without consulting me. Madison shrugged, now examining a ball gown with intricate beadwork. Last month, when Tyler proposed, Mom called to congratulate me, and we started talking about wedding venues. You know how expensive Belle Meade Country Club is, right? And Tyler's mother, Patricia, specifically mentioned how important it was to have an event that reflects both families' standing in the community. She paused, meeting my eyes for the first time since arriving. You understand, right? I mean, what were you going to do with all that money anyway? Hire more computer programmers? The question revealed everything about how my family perceived my work and my priorities. In Madison's mind, my business was a hobby that had gotten out of hand, something I did because I lacked the social skills for more traditional feminine pursuits. She genuinely couldn't comprehend that I'd built something significant, something that generated real value beyond aesthetic appeal or social recognition. Actually, I said, standing and walking to my desk where I kept my business files, I had planned to use that money to purchase Heritage Tower. Madison blinked, the dress drooping in her hands. The big building downtown? Why would you want to buy that? Because Richardson Digital Solutions currently leases 4 floors, and purchasing the entire building would allow us to expand our operations significantly. We're in talks with 3 Fortune 500 companies about major digital transformation, projects that would require doubling our staff within the next year. She stared at me as if I'd started speaking a foreign language. You're serious? You actually run a big company? The question stung more than her casual dismissal of my inheritance. We were sisters, had grown up in the same house, attended the same schools through high school. Yet Madison had managed to completely overlook the reality of my professional life for nearly a decade. While she'd been building her social media following and working as an event coordinator for a boutique planning company, I'd been transforming small businesses through custom software solutions and strategic technology integration. Madison, Richardson Digital Solutions is one of the fastest-growing tech consulting firms in the Southeast. We've been profiled in Inkier magazine twice, and I was named Nashville Business Journal's Entrepreneur of the Year last year. She processed this information with visible difficulty, her understanding of our family dynamics clearly requiring adjustment. But you never talk about work at family dinners. You just sit there while Mom and Dad ask about my clients and my relationship with Tyler. Because they never ask about my business, I replied simply. When I try to discuss my work, Dad changes the subject to the hardware store, and Mom redirects to questions about when I'm going to find someone nice and settle down like you did. Madison sat down abruptly on my sofa, wedding dresses forgotten, around her. I honestly thought you just did freelance computer stuff for small businesses, like fixing people's websites or something. The gap between my reality and my family's perception of it had grown so wide that we were essentially living in different universes. While I'd been building a technology empire, they'd been treating me like the family tech support person, someone who could help with printer problems but wasn't quite capable of real business success. The company is named Richardson Digital Solutions, I said gently. Richardson, like our family name. But that could be a coincidence, she protested, though uncertainty had crept into her voice. I walked to my bookshelf and retrieved a framed photo from my desk, turning it toward her. The image showed me cutting a ribbon at our new office space 2 years ago, surrounded by employees and local business leaders. The company logo, clearly visible on the building behind me, read Richardson Digital Solutions in elegant lettering. Madison studied the photograph, her expression shifting from confusion to something approaching recognition. This is really your company? You own all of this? I founded it in 2016 with $5,000 in savings and a laptop. We outgrew 3 different office spaces before moving to Heritage Tower. The building purchase would have given us permanent stability and room for continued expansion. She set down the photograph carefully, her festive energy completely deflated. Emma, I had no idea. When Mom and Dad said they were liquidating grandmother's trust fund for my wedding, I assumed you'd agreed. They made it sound like you didn't really need the money. Did you ask them if they'd discussed it with me? Madison's silence answered my question. She'd been so excited about her dream wedding, so caught up in the social opportunities Tyler's family connections provided, that she hadn't questioned whether appropriating my inheritance might be problematic. I can't uninvite 300 people, she said quietly, a defensive edge returning to her voice. The deposits are all paid, the flowers are ordered, the band is booked. Everything's been arranged. I'm not asking you to cancel your wedding, Madison. Then what are you asking? She stood again, gathering the wedding dresses with agitated movements. Because if you think I'm going to feel guilty about having one perfect day just because you wanted to buy a building, you're mistaken. The money was just sitting there in some investment account. At least now it's being used for something meaningful, something that brings families together and creates beautiful memories. The way she framed it, I was the selfish one for wanting to honor our grandmother's intentions, for planning to use my inheritance for the business development purposes explicitly outlined in the trust documents. In Madison's narrative, my desire to purchase Heritage Tower was mere materialism, while her expensive wedding represented love, family, and meaningful connection. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. You're right, I said finally. The money's gone, the wedding's planned, and arguing about it won't change anything. Madison studied my face carefully, perhaps suspicious of my easy agreement. So you're okay with this? You're not going to make a big scene at the wedding or anything? I'll be there to support you and celebrate your marriage to Tyler. Relief washed over her features, and her characteristic brightness returned. Oh, good. I was worried this might create drama, and Tyler's family is so particular about maintaining proper appearances. She gathered the last of the dress samples, heading toward my door. You should really dress up for the wedding, Emma. I invited some of Tyler's business connections, and you might meet someone nice, someone who appreciates your computer skills. After she left, I sat in my living room surrounded by the subtle chaos she'd created, contemplating the strange mathematics of family relationships. Madison genuinely believed she was helping me by providing networking opportunities at her wedding, not understanding that my professional network already included the executives she was hoping to impress. She saw my life as incomplete, lacking the relationship milestones and social achievements that defined success in her world. My phone buzzed with a text from my assistant, Sarah. Heritage Tower owners accepted our offer. They're waiting for proof of funds to close next week. I stared at the message, then at the liquidation documents spread across my coffee table. The irony was almost artistic in its perfection. My family had sold my inheritance to fund Madison's wedding at the exact moment I needed those funds to purchase the building that would secure my company's future. The timing wasn't coincidental. My parents had known about my business expansion plans because I'd mentioned them at our last family dinner 3 months ago. They'd simply decided that Madison's social ambitions took precedence over my professional goals. I called my attorney, David Brennan, who had handled the trust fund documentation when grandmother Eleanor passed away. David, it's Emma Richardson. I need to understand exactly what legal recourse I have regarding my inheritance. Emma, I was hoping you'd call. When your parents requested the trust liquidation paperwork last month, I asked them to have you contact me directly to confirm. They assured me you'd given your approval. I never spoke with them about liquidating the trust fund. A long pause. That's problematic. The trust documents specifically required your written consent for any disbursements exceeding $10,000. Your parents provided what appeared to be your signature on the authorization forms. My mind raced through the implications. They forged my signature? I can't make that determination without a handwriting analysis, but the authorization seemed legitimate at the time. Your parents have been handling family financial matters for years, so it didn't seem unusual for them to present the paperwork on your behalf. What are my options now? Legally, you could pursue civil action against your parents for unauthorized use of trust funds. However, given that they're family and the money has already been spent, you might want to consider whether that's the path you want to pursue. David was right, of course. Taking legal action against my parents would destroy our family relationships, while likely not recovering the funds that had already been committed to wedding vendors. Moreover, proving that they'd acted without my consent would require lengthy court proceedings that would overshadow Madison's wedding and create exactly the kind of drama I'd always tried to avoid in our family dynamics. Thank you, David. I'll need some time to think about this. Emma, for what it's worth, I'm sorry this happened. Your grandmother specifically structured that trust to support your professional development because she believed in your business acumen. Eleanor, would be proud of what you've built with Richardson Digital Solutions. After ending the call, I walked to my window overlooking downtown Nashville. The city buzzed with activity below, people pursuing their ambitions and building their futures, most of them unaware that their digital infrastructure likely ran on systems my company had designed and implemented. I'd created something substantial and lasting, something that provided good jobs and innovative solutions to real business problems. Yet my own family saw my achievements as somehow less valuable than Madison's ability to plan an aesthetically pleasing social event. They'd literally sold my professional future to fund her personal fantasy, then presented it as if they were doing me a favor by forcing me to attend the expensive party they'd bought with my inheritance. I opened my laptop and began drafting an email to the Heritage Tower owners, explaining that I needed to restructure our purchase timeline due to unexpected financial complications. The building sale wouldn't disappear entirely, but it would delay my expansion plans significantly while I rebuilt the capital my family had appropriated. The bitter irony wasn't lost on me. While Madison was planning a celebration of her future, with Tyler, funded by my stolen inheritance, I was working to reconstruct the professional future my family had hijacked. She would dance in a dress bought with my grandmother's money while I smiled politely from the margins, playing the role of supportive sister while privately calculating how long it would take to recover from their betrayal. My phone rang with another call from Sarah. Emma, I have strange news. Richardson Digital Solutions just received a request for wedding sponsorship from someone named Madison Richardson. She's asking for $25,000 to sponsor bar services at Belle Meade Country Club next month. I almost laughed out loud. Madison had not only spent my inheritance on her wedding, she was now trying to get additional funding from my company, not realizing that she was asking me to pay for her celebration twice. What information did she provide about the event? She mentioned it's a high-profile social gathering that would provide excellent networking opportunities for our company. She specifically noted that the guest list includes several prominent Nashville business leaders who might be interested in our services. The audacity was breathtaking. Madison was essentially offering to sell me access to potential clients at her own wedding, not understanding that many of those prominent business leaders were already clients or colleagues of mine. She was trying to monetize connections I'd already established through years of professional relationship building. Accept the sponsorship request, I told Sarah, and please mark it as a corporate entertainment expense. Are you sure? 25,000 seems steep for bar sponsorship at a private wedding. I'm sure. Also, please add my name to the guest list as Emma Richardson, +1. Sarah paused, clearly confused by the unusual nature of this business transaction. Should I ask about seating arrangements or any other details? No, I'm sure the event coordinator will handle all the logistics appropriately. After ending the call, I sat back in my chair, contemplating the strange turn my life had taken. In the span of 2 hours, I discovered that my parents had stolen my inheritance to fund my sister's wedding, and now I was sponsoring that same wedding through my company, while attending as a family member who had been deemed unworthy of proper seating. The situation was so absurd, it transcended anger, moving into a realm of anthropological fascination. I was essentially conducting a field study on my own family's capacity for cognitive dissonance, watching them navigate the mental gymnastics required to take my money while maintaining their narrative about my professional limitations. I spent the rest of the day working on a digital transformation proposal for a healthcare network, immersing myself in the technical challenges that had always made more sense to me than family dynamics. Complex problems with logical solutions, where success was measured in measurable outcomes rather than social perception. As evening approached, my phone buzzed with a group text from Madison to the entire family. "Just finalized the last wedding details. Can't wait to celebrate with everyone at Belle Meade next month. Special thanks to Mom and Dad for making this dream possible, and to Richardson Digital Solutions for the generous bar sponsorship. This is going to be the most magical day ever." I stared at the message, noting that she'd thanked our parents and my company while mentioning me only as part of everyone. In Madison's mind, I remained peripheral to the celebration, just another guest attending the event she'd made possible through her charm and social connections. My mother called 20 minutes later. "Emma, darling, Madison told me you're sponsoring the bar through your little consulting business. That's so generous of you." "It's called Richardson Digital Solutions, Mom, and it's not little." "Of course, dear. Anyway, I wanted to make sure you're planning something special to wear. You know how important appearances are at these country club events, and Madison specifically asked that everyone dress appropriately." "I'll make sure to dress appropriately." "Wonderful. Oh, and Emma? I know money might be tight for you right now, so don't feel pressured to give an expensive wedding gift. Your presence is present enough, as they say." The comment revealed the depth of my family's misconceptions about my financial situation. They'd stolen my inheritance to fund Madison's wedding while simultaneously worrying that I might not be able to afford a decent wedding gift. They'd reduced me to a financial afterthought while spending money that was legally mine, then expressed concern about my ability to contribute to the celebration they'd funded with my own money. "Thank you for the consideration, Mom. I'm sure I'll figure out an appropriate gift." After she hung up, I opened my laptop and began researching Belle Meade Country Club, not as a wedding guest, but as a business owner evaluating the venue, where my company would be prominently featured as a sponsor. The irony of the situation had evolved beyond mere personal slight into something approaching performance art. I was simultaneously the secret benefactor and the overlooked family member, the successful entrepreneur and the pitied sister, the victim of their financial manipulation and the enabler of their social aspirations. The wedding would be a masterpiece of cognitive dissonance, where everyone involved would participate in an elaborate fiction about who had made the celebration possible. But I had one advantage my family didn't know about: patience. While they were focused on the immediate gratification of social recognition and aesthetic perfection, I was thinking strategically about long-term consequences and opportunities. Madison's wedding would indeed be magical, exactly as she'd envisioned. But the magic she experienced would be built on foundations she'd never bothered to examine, funded by money she'd never earned, and celebrated at a venue sponsored by the sister she'd consistently underestimated. The real revelation wouldn't come during the wedding itself, but in the months that followed, when the thank you notes had been sent, the honeymoon photos posted, and the final vendor invoices arrived. That's when Madison and my parents would begin to understand the true scope of their miscalculation and the actual cost of taking my money while dismissing my achievements. Until then, I would play my assigned role perfectly: the supportive sister, the quiet guest, the afterthought at table 12. But unlike my family's perception of me, I knew exactly who I was and what I'd built. And I was about to show them the difference between success that looks impressive on social media and success that actually changes the world. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of wedding preparations that unfolded around me like an elaborate theater production in which I was both spectator and unwilling patron. Madison called daily with updates that grew increasingly frantic as the wedding date approached, each conversation revealing new layers of excess funded by my grandmother's legacy. The florist is being absolutely ridiculous about the orchid. Arrangements, she complained during one particularly dramatic phone call. They want an extra $3,000 for the centerpieces I showed you in the magazine. I told them it's not my fault they underestimated the cost of importing those specific blooms from Thailand. I listened from my office at Richardson Digital Solutions, watching through floor-to-ceiling windows as Nashville's downtown district bustled with activity below. My assistant Sarah knocked softly and entered with a stack of documents requiring my signature, including the final contracts for our upcoming merger with a boutique AI development firm. The acquisition would have been simple with the Heritage Tower purchase providing additional office space, but we were now having to lease temporary facilities to accommodate the expansion. Emma, are you even listening? Madison's voice pulled me back to the conversation. I said I need you to ask your computer company if they could increase the bar sponsorship by just a few thousand. Tyler's mother, Patricia, suggested we offer top-shelf liquor all evening instead of just during cocktail hours. And the casual way she referred to Richardson Digital Solutions as my computer company, while simultaneously asking for additional funding, captured everything about my family's relationship with my success. They dismissed its significance while exploiting its profitability, treating my business like a convenient ATM rather than the culmination of years of strategic planning and innovation. Madison, Richardson Digital Solutions isn't a bottomless well of sponsorship money. We have actual business considerations when making entertainment investments. But this isn't just entertainment, she protested. This is networking. Tyler's father, James Morrison, is inviting several banking executives. And wasn't it you who always says business is about relationships? This wedding could open doors for your company. The irony of Madison lecturing me about business networking while planning an event with my stolen inheritance was almost too perfect. She genuinely believed she was creating opportunities for me, not understanding that most of the influential guests she was so eager to impress were already in my professional network. James Morrison's bank held the primary loan for Richardson Digital Solutions office lease, and I'd had dinner with his senior partners the previous month to discuss expanding our digital infrastructure contract. I'll review the budget and see what's possible, I told her, knowing that maintaining the fiction required continued participation in her elaborate fantasy. Oh, wonderful. You're the best sister ever. And Emma, I know I don't say this enough, but I really appreciate how supportive you've been through all of this wedding planning. I know social events aren't really your thing, but it means everything to me that you're trying to be involved. Her gratitude for my involvement in the event funded by my own inheritance would have been laughable if it weren't so deeply insulting. Madison genuinely believed she was graciously allowing me to participate in her special day, not recognizing that her entire fairy tale celebration was built on money legally intended for my business development. After ending the call, I turned my attention to an email from David Brennan, my attorney, with an update on the inheritance situation. He'd completed his investigation into the signature authorization forms my parents had provided for the trust fund liquidation. Emma, the handwriting analysis confirms that the signature on the authorization forms wasn't yours. However, the forgery was sophisticated enough that the bank's verification process didn't flag it as suspicious. Your parents clearly had access to documents with your legitimate signature for reference. I read the email twice, letting the implications sink in. My parents hadn't acted impulsively or out of confusion about my wishes. They deliberately and methodically forged my signature to access money that wasn't theirs, then spent it on Madison's wedding while maintaining the fiction that I had willingly participated in their decision. David's email continued with a legal assessment of my options, all of which involved destroying family relationships for uncertain financial recovery. The money was gone, spent on non-refundable deposits and vendor contracts. Even successful litigation would likely result in years of court proceedings for partial restitution, assuming my parents had assets sufficient to cover reimbursement. More importantly, pursuing legal action would expose the entire situation publicly potentially damaging Richardson Digital Solutions' reputation and definitely destroying any remaining trust within our family. While I was angry about the theft of my inheritance, I wasn't prepared to sacrifice my business relationships or family connections for the satisfaction of legal vindication. Instead, I drafted a careful response to David, instructing him to document everything thoroughly but take no immediate action. I wanted complete records of the forgery and unauthorized disbursements for future reference, but I wouldn't be filing charges against my parents or pursuing civil litigation at this time. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. "Emma, dear, could you stop by the house this weekend? Your father wants to discuss something important with you. Also, bring something casual to wear. We're all going wedding dress shopping with Madison for her final fitting." The invitation contained layers of manipulation subtle enough that I almost admired their sophistication. By framing the visit as my father wanting to discuss something important, she'd created a sense of urgency that made declining seem unreasonable. Including the wedding dress shopping trip as a casual afterthought disguised a command performance as a family bonding opportunity. I knew exactly what my father wanted to discuss. With the wedding just 2 weeks away, my parents had probably realized that our family's financial situation required explanation, particularly given that they'd need to maintain fiction about their generosity in funding Madison's celebration. They were likely preparing to reveal a carefully edited version of events that positioned them as sacrificial parents who had touched their own retirement funds to give Madison the wedding of her dreams. Saturday afternoon found me driving through green hills toward the modest ranch house where I'd grown up, watching familiar neighborhoods change as Nashville's growth pushed upscale development into previously affordable areas. My parents' house looked smaller every time I visited, its dated exterior and overgrown landscaping a stark contrast to the manicured perfection of Madison's social media lifestyle, or the sleek modernism of my downtown loft. My mother answered the door wearing her finest casual outfit, a floral blouse and khaki pants that suggested she'd dressed up for my visit, despite characterizing the occasion as family time. "Emma, sweetheart, you look so professional. Don't you own anything that's just comfortable and pretty?" The comment contained her usual blend of criticism disguised as maternal concern, questioning my fashion choices while simultaneously dismissing my professional appearance as inappropriate for family gatherings. I'd learned years ago that any response would lead to a longer conversation about my failure to embrace traditional femininity, so I simply smiled and followed her into the living room. My father looked up from his newspaper, his expression revealing the discomfort he always displayed when forced to engage in emotional or complicated conversations. "Emma, good to see you. Your mother said you wanted to talk about the family. Finances." The redirect was masterful in its simplicity. My mother had told me that he wanted to discuss something important, but he'd been informed that I had requested the conversation. This way, they could position themselves as responding to my concerns rather than proactively explaining their theft of my inheritance. "I recently discovered that grandmother Eleanor's trust fund has been liquidated," I said directly, choosing not to play along with their interpretative games. My parents exchanged a look that contained volumes of silent communication, the kind of wordless dialogue developed over decades of marriage and shared deception. My mother spoke first, her tone carefully calibrated to convey both defensiveness and righteous justification. "Emma, we've been meaning to explain that situation to you. Your father and I made a difficult decision about Eleanor's trust, but we knew you'd understand once you heard our reasoning." My father cleared his throat, assuming his role in their coordinated explanation. The trust fund was just sitting in investment accounts, not doing anyone any good. Meanwhile, Madison was facing the financial stress of planning a wedding to someone from the Morrison family, who have certain expectations about social events. The way they framed it, liquidating my inheritance was a practical solution to an immediate problem, as if money designated for business development was somehow less valuable than money spent on party decorations. They'd transformed their theft into prudent financial planning, their daughter's social anxieties into legitimate family concerns requiring collective sacrifice. The trust documents specifically stated that the money was intended for my business expansion, I pointed out calmly. My mother waved her hand dismissively. Eleanor wasn't a businesswoman, dear. She didn't understand modern financial planning. That money has been generating modest returns for years while your little consulting business has been supporting itself. Just fine. Their assessment of both my grandmother's business acumen and my company's success revealed the depth of their misunderstanding. Eleanor had built Richardson Hardware from a single storefront into a regional chain before selling it for the funds she'd carefully invested in my trust. She'd been a shrewd businesswoman who understood exactly what she was doing when she designated that money for my professional development. Meanwhile, my little consulting business had grown beyond their comprehension, generating revenues that dwarfed their annual income from the hardware store my father had inherited and promptly reduced to a small local operation through his lack of vision and conservative management. Besides, my father added, Madison's marriage to Tyler represents an opportunity for all of us. The Morrison family has connections throughout Nashville's business community that could benefit your technology work. I stared at him, trying to process the logic that justified stealing my money to purchase networking opportunities with people I already knew professionally. My parents had appropriated my inheritance to insert Madison into social circles where my business relationships had already established our family's standing. "Did you ask Madison if she wanted the wedding funded this way?" I inquired, genuinely curious about my sister's level of knowledge and complicity. "Madison doesn't need to worry about financial details," my mother replied quickly. "She's focused on creating a beautiful day that brings families together." Tyler's mother, Patricia, specifically commented on how important it is for the bride's family to contribute appropriately to the celebration. The response revealed that Madison was likely unaware of the source of her wedding funding, probably believing our parents had used their own retirement savings or taken out loans to finance her fairy tale celebration. Patricia Morrison's influence on our family's decision-making was interesting but unsurprising, given her social standing and her son's choice to marry into a family she clearly considered beneath their station. "Emma," my father said, leaning forward with the earnest expression he reserved for imparting important life lessons. "Sometimes family means making sacrifices for each other. Your mother and I have always tried to treat you girls equally, and when Madison needed help achieving her dreams, we knew you'd want us to support her." The statement was so fundamentally untrue that I almost laughed. They'd never treated Madison and me equally, consistently prioritizing her immediate desires over my long-term goals, celebrating her aesthetic achievements while dismissing my professional success. Their decision to liquidate my inheritance without consultation wasn't equal treatment, but rather the culmination of a lifetime of considering Madison's wants more important than my needs. "I see," I said simply, recognizing that arguing with their version of events would be pointless. They'd constructed a narrative that transformed theft into sacrifice, forgery into family cooperation, and my financial loss into Madison's deserved happiness. "We knew you'd understand," my mother said with obvious relief. "You've always been so practical and independent. Madison needs more support to achieve her potential, while you've proven you can succeed on your own." Their logic was circular but internally consistent. Because I was successful, I didn't deserve the inheritance intended to support my success, while Madison deserved that money precisely because she wasn't successful enough to earn it herself. They'd punished my competence while rewarding Madison's dependence, then presented this as parental wisdom rather than profound unfairness. My phone chimed with a text from Madison. "Mom said you're coming dress shopping with us. The bridal consultant suggested we bring the whole family for emotional support during the final fitting. Tyler's bringing his mother too, so it'll be like a preview of how well our families blend together." The message revealed that our parents had committed me to participating in Madison's dress fitting without asking, assuming I would comply with their plans just as I'd accepted their theft of my inheritance. They'd learned that my restraint and Family loyalty could be exploited indefinitely without consequence. "I should probably warn you," my mother said as we prepared to leave for the bridal boutique. "Patricia Morrison has very strong opinions about wedding details. She's been helpful in guiding Madison toward appropriate choices, but she can be a bit overwhelming if you're not used to her social standards." The warning was clearly intended to prevent me from embarrassing our family during the dress fitting, positioning Patricia Morrison as an authority whose judgments I should accept without question. My mother seemed unaware that I'd met Patricia multiple times in professional contexts, including a Chamber of Commerce gala where she'd specifically complimented Richardson Digital Solutions' innovative approach to digital transformation in traditional industries. Minutes later, we arrived at Nashville's most exclusive bridal boutique, where Madison was already holding court in a private fitting room filled with mirrors, champagne flutes, and strategically placed tissues for emotional moments. Tyler sat, awkwardly in a corner chair, clearly uncomfortable with the feminine ritual surrounding his fiancée's transformation into a bride. Patricia Morrison dominated the space with her presence, her silver hair perfectly styled, and her designer outfit suggesting someone who dressed carefully for every public appearance. She greeted my parents with polite warmth while offering me a smile that contained subtle evaluation. "Emma, how lovely to see you again," she said, extending her hand in a gesture that was part greeting and part power play. "Madison has told me so much about her sister who works with computers." The phrasing revealed Madison's description of my career, reducing Richardson Digital Solutions to hobby-level computer work, rather than the sophisticated technology consulting that had impressed Patricia during our previous professional encounters. I accepted her handshake with professional composure, choosing not to correct Madison's characterization. "It's good to see you again, Mrs. Morrison. I hope Tyler's adjusting well to all the wedding preparations." She laughed, a sound calibrated to convey both amusement and mild superiority. Men never truly understand what goes into creating a proper wedding, but Tyler's learning to appreciate the importance of social events in establishing a couple's place in the community. Madison emerged from the dressing room wearing her wedding gown, a confection of silk and beading that had probably cost more than many people's annual salaries. She looked genuinely radiant, her face glowing with the kind of happiness that comes from achieving a long-held dream. "What do you think?" she asked the room, spinning slowly to display the gown's elaborate details. The seamstress made adjustments to the neckline and the train length, and I think it's absolutely perfect now. Everyone offered appropriate praise while Madison basked in the attention, clearly in her element as the center of admiration and celebration. I observed her genuine joy and felt a complex mixture of emotions: happiness for her excitement, sadness about our relationship's limitations, and anger about the cost of her dream dress that my family had funded with my stolen inheritance. "Patricia." Morrison circled Madison like a discerning art critic evaluating a masterpiece. "The silhouette is lovely, dear, and the beadwork is exquisite. I think your guests will be quite impressed." She paused, then added with pointed significance, "The Morrison family has certain traditions about wedding presentations, and I believe this gown honors those expectations appropriately." The comment revealed the power dynamics underlying Madison's wedding planning process. Patricia's approval wasn't merely aesthetic appreciation, but rather confirmation that Madison had successfully navigated the complex social requirements for marrying into the Morrison family. Every detail, from the venue selection to the dress design, had been evaluated against unstated but inflexible standards for acceptability. "Emma, come stand next to Madison," my mother instructed, pulling out her phone to capture the moment. "I want pictures of my girls together before Madison becomes a married woman." I moved to stand beside my sister, noting the dramatic contrast between her elaborate wedding gown and my simple business casual outfit. The photographs would document not just Madison's bridal transformation, but also the vast difference in how our family approached and celebrated our respective life choices. As the camera clicked, Patricia Morrison made an observation that seemed casual, but carried deeper implications. It's so wonderful that Madison has such a supportive sister. Emma, I understand you're involved in technology consulting? That must be fascinating work. The question contained subtle probing, likely sparked by recognition from our previous professional encounters, but filtered through Madison's dismissive description of my career. I could see Patricia's mental calculations as she attempted to reconcile her knowledge of Richardson Digital Solutions with Madison's characterization of my work as simple computer support. Yes, I founded a technology consulting firm that specializes in digital transformation for traditional industries, I replied professionally. We work with healthcare systems, financial institutions, and manufacturing companies to optimize their technological infrastructure. Patricia's expression sharpened with interest. How intriguing. What's the name of your firm? Richardson Digital Solutions. The recognition was immediate and unmistakable. Patricia's composed facade momentarily cracked as she realized that Madison's computer-savvy sister was actually the CEO of the company that had handled the Morrison family bank's recent digital security upgrade. Her mental reassessment was visible as she connected my identity with my professional reputation. Richardson Digital Solutions, she repeated slowly. We've been quite impressed with your company's work with Morrison Financial Group. I had no idea Madison's sister was the Emma Richardson who presented at our board meeting last quarter. The revelation created an interesting moment of cognitive dissonance in the room. Madison looked confused by this exchange between her future mother-in-law and the sister she'd consistently characterized as socially awkward and professionally limited. My parents seemed equally puzzled by Patricia's respectful tone and obvious knowledge of my business accomplishments. Tyler perked up for the first time during the entire fitting process. Wait, you're the Richardson Digital Solutions Emma Richardson? The company that designed the new mobile banking platform? Before I could respond, Madison interrupted with a laugh that carried a nervous edge. I think there might be some confusion. Emma does freelance computer work, not anything as sophisticated as banking platforms. The awkward silence that followed revealed the gap between Madison's understanding of my career and the reality that Tyler and his mother were beginning to grasp. I found myself in the unusual position of being both overestimated by the Morrisons, professional respect, and underestimated by my own family's dismissive assumptions. Patricia Morrison handled the situation with practiced social grace, though I could see her mental calculations about family dynamics and social positioning continuing behind her composed expression. Well, regardless of professional details, the important thing is that you're here to support Madison during this special time. The subject change was diplomatic but strategic, allowing everyone to retreat from the uncomfortable revelation that Madison's family relationships were more complex than she'd represented to her future in-laws. However, I could see Patricia filing away this information for future consideration, particularly regarding her assessment of our family's social and professional standing. Madison had become increasingly agitated during this exchange, clearly uncomfortable with any conversation that shifted attention away from her wedding dress and toward my professional achievements. Should we focus on the final fitting details? She suggested with pointed timing. The seamstress is waiting to mark the hem length. The remainder of the appointment proceeded with careful attention to dress modifications and accessory coordination. But the atmosphere had changed subtly. Patricia Morrison's newfound awareness of my professional status created an undercurrent of reassessment that affected everyone's behavior. Madison worked harder to regain her position as the central focus, while my parents seemed unsure how to process their discovery that Tyler's family held my work in higher regard than they'd realized. As we prepared to leave the boutique, Patricia approached me with a business card and a proposition that surprised everyone present. Emma, I hope you'll consider this an appropriate time to mention that Morrison Financial Group is exploring expanded technology consulting services. Perhaps we could arrange a meeting after the wedding to discuss potential projects. The offer was simultaneously professional courtesy and social power play, demonstrating Patricia's ability to recognize valuable business relationships while also asserting her family's influence over post-wedding interactions. More importantly, it revealed that she'd decided my company's professional reputation outweighed any concerns about Madison's family background. Madison's expression during this exchange was fascinating to observe. Her future mother-in-law was actively courting her computer nerd sister for business opportunities, contradicting everything she'd believed about our relative social value within the Morrison family's sphere of influence. "Thank you, Mrs. Morrison. I'd be happy to discuss how Richardson Digital Solutions might support your expansion goals." As we left the boutique, Madison walked beside me with an expression of confusion and mild irritation. "Emma, I honestly didn't know your computer business was important enough that Patricia would know about it. Why didn't you ever mention that you work with Tyler's family's bank?" The question revealed the fundamental disconnect in our family communication. I'd mentioned major client relationships and professional achievements at family dinners for years, but those discussions had been consistently dismissed or redirected toward Madison's social activities and romantic relationships. My family had trained themselves not to hear information about my success because it didn't fit their established narrative about our respective roles and capabilities. "I've tried to share details about my work, Madison, but the conversation usually shifts to other topics." She considered this for a moment, then brightened with what appeared to be an inspired solution. "Well, now that I know your business is actually impressive, maybe you could use that to help our family make a better impression on the Morrisons. Tyler's father is always interested in successful entrepreneurs." The suggestion perfectly captured Madison's worldview. My professional achievements were valuable primarily for how they could enhance her social positioning and family connections. She wasn't proud of my success for its own sake, but rather excited about how it might be leveraged to strengthen her marriage prospects and social standing. Our parents had remained unusually quiet during the drive home, clearly processing the afternoon's revelations about my relationship with Tyler's family and the respect my business commanded in their social circle. When we arrived back at their house, my father finally spoke. "Emma, I had no idea your technology work was sophisticated enough to impress people like the Morrisons. Maybe we should learn more about what you actually do at that company of yours." His offer to learn about my career came years too late, and only after he'd discovered that other influential people valued my professional accomplishments. The conditional nature of his interest revealed everything about our family dynamics. My achievements only mattered when they served Madison's social ambitions or enhanced our family's standing with people my parents sought to impress. "I appreciate the interest, Dad. Maybe after the wedding, when things settle down, we can find time to discuss Richardson Digital Solutions in detail." As I prepared to leave my parents' house that evening, I reflected on the complex web of misconceptions and deliberate blindness that had allowed my family to steal my inheritance while maintaining their fiction about my professional and personal limitations. They'd managed to simultaneously underestimate my success and exploit its financial benefits, creating a sustainable system of denial that served their emotional needs while enriching their preferred daughter. Madison's wedding would proceed as planned, funded by my grandmother's legacy and sponsored by my company, while I sat at table 12 and smiled supportively from the margins. But the afternoon's revelations had planted seeds of doubt in everyone's mind about the accuracy of our established family roles and hierarchy. The cognitive dissonance would only grow stronger as the wedding approached, and Patricia Morrison continued to interact with our family through the lens of her newfound respect for my professional achievements. Madison's fantasy of being the successful daughter who had elevated our family's social standing was beginning to crack under the weight of reality she'd previously managed to ignore, and I was curious to see how long she could maintain that fantasy once the full scope of my business success became impossible to dismiss or minimize. The morning of Madison's wedding dawned with the kind of perfect October weather that Nashville's tourism board featured in promotional materials. Golden sunlight filtered through autumn leaves, creating a natural backdrop that would photograph beautifully for my sister's social media documentation of her perfect day. I stood on my loft balcony with coffee, watching the city wake up while contemplating the surreal reality that I would spend this gorgeous Saturday celebrating an event funded entirely by my stolen inheritance. My phone had been buzzing with messages since dawn, a mixture of last-minute wedding coordination from Madison's bridesmaids and business communications from Richardson Digital Solutions. Sarah had forwarded several client emails that required responses, including confirmation from Morrison Financial Group about a Monday meeting to discuss expanded technology services. Patricia Morrison had wasted no time following up on her offer. From the bridal boutique, treating our professional relationship with the seriousness my own family had never demonstrated. At 8 a.m, Madison called in a state of barely controlled panic that I'd learned to recognize as her standard pre-event emotional state. "Emma, thank God you answered. The florist is claiming they can't deliver the ceremony arrangements until 10:30, which means the photographer won't have enough time to capture the venue setup before the guests arrive. And Tyler's groomsmen are apparently all hungover from last night's bachelor party celebration, so I'm not sure they'll be able to handle the boutonniere coordination properly." I listened patiently while reviewing my calendar for Monday's meetings, including the Morrison Financial Group appointment that would likely generate more revenue than Madison's entire wedding budget. The irony of her wedding serving as an introduction to new business opportunities, funded by money stolen from my expansion plans, had evolved beyond mere personal slight into something approaching cosmic humor. "Madison, I'm sure the vendor coordination will work out. You hired the most expensive wedding planner in Nashville specifically to handle these logistics. Olivia Blake is supposed to be managing everything, but she's been impossible to reach this morning. Her assistant says she's handling a crisis with another client's rehearsal dinner that went completely wrong last night." Madison's voice rose with increasing anxiety. "Emma, I need you to come to Belle Meade early and help supervise the setup. You're good with organizing details, and I trust you more than anyone else to make sure everything meets my standards." The request revealed Madison's fundamental misunderstanding of both my professional responsibilities and my role in her wedding celebration. She genuinely believed that my business success stemmed from an aptitude for detail management rather than strategic vision and technological innovation. In her mind, running a $50 million consulting firm was similar to coordinating flower deliveries and photographer schedules. "Madison, I have client work that requires attention this morning, and I'm not qualified to supervise wedding vendors." That's exactly what you pay professional event coordinators to handle. But what if something goes wrong? What if the ceremony space doesn't look perfect when Tyler's family arrives? Patricia Morrison specifically mentioned how important visual presentation is for establishing the right impression, and I can't afford to have anything look less than absolute perfection. Her anxiety about impressing Tyler's mother had intensified since the bridal boutique encounter, particularly after Patricia's professional interest in my work had contradicted Madison's narrative about our family's social standing. Madison was now hyper-aware that the Morrison family's assessment of her might be influenced by their evaluation of our entire family dynamic. "Madison, your wedding will be beautiful. You've planned every detail meticulously, hired the best vendors in Nashville, and chosen a venue that's inherently elegant. Trust the professionals you've employed and focus on enjoying your day." After ending the call, I returned to my routine of reviewing Richardson Digital Solutions' quarterly reports, while monitoring social media posts from wedding guests who were apparently documenting their preparation process with professional photographers Madison had hired to capture behind-the-scenes content. The elaborate documentation of her wedding day was designed to create a comprehensive archive of her perfect event, though I doubted she realized that her social media audience included several of my business clients who might find our family dynamics amusing rather than impressive. My assistant Sarah called at 10 to confirm the corporate gift for Madison and Tyler, a Waterford crystal vase set that cost precisely the amount expected from a successful business owner without being ostentatious enough to upstage other wedding presents. The gift would arrive with tasteful corporate packaging that identified Richardson Digital Solutions as the sender, though I suspected Madison would interpret the company attribution as evidence of my inability to afford a personal gift rather than recognition of my business success. At noon, I began preparing for the wedding with the same methodical approach I applied to important business meetings. I'd selected a navy blue silk dress that conveyed understated elegance without competing with bridal party colors, paired with jewelry that suggested professional success without flashy display. My goal was to appear appropriately dressed for a country club wedding while remaining forgettable enough to avoid unwanted attention from guests who might recognize my professional reputation. The drive to Belle Meade Country Club took me through some of Nashville's most exclusive neighborhoods, past mansions that represented old money established through generations of careful social positioning and strategic marriages. Madison's wedding venue sat at the heart of this traditional wealth, its Georgian architecture and manicured grounds representing exactly the kind of prestige she'd always craved. I arrived precisely at the requested time, neither early enough to appear eager nor late enough to draw criticism. The club's parking lot already contained dozens of luxury vehicles, evidence that Tyler's family connections had attracted Nashville's social and business elite. I recognized several cars belonging to clients of Richardson Digital Solutions, including the mayor's husband, whose nonprofit organization used our donor management software. The club's interior had been transformed into an elaborate celebration, space that showcased Madison's aesthetic vision and our parents' willingness to spare no expense with my inheritance. Cream-colored roses and white orchids created sophisticated arrangements that complemented the venue's classic architecture, while subtle lighting enhanced the natural elegance of the ballroom's high ceilings and crystal chandeliers. Madison appeared in the bridal suite hallway wearing her wedding gown and an expression of barely contained hysteria. Her professional makeup artist had clearly worked magic to conceal any evidence of mourning stress, but her body language betrayed the anxiety that elegant cosmetics couldn't disguise. "Emma, finally, I've been texting you for 20 minutes. The photographer wants to start family portraits, but Mom and Dad are nowhere to be found, and Tyler's groomsmen still haven't figured out how to properly attach their boutonnieres." I followed her toward the designated photography area, noting that the club staff maintained professional composure despite the obvious chaos surrounding Madison's wedding coordination. The vendors moved with practiced efficiency, implementing detailed plans while diplomatically managing the bride's evolving emotional state. "Where exactly are Mom and Dad?" I asked, genuinely curious about their disappearance during crucial pre-ceremony hours. "They're meeting with someone from the club about payment processing for final vendor invoices. Apparently, there were complications with the payment method, and they needed to provide additional financial documentation." The explanation suggested that my parents were discovering the practical complexities of funding a six-figure wedding celebration. While they'd been confident about appropriating my inheritance for Madison's event, they might not have anticipated the bureaucratic requirements associated with large financial transactions at exclusive venues. Tyler appeared from the men's preparation area looking handsome in his formal wear, but clearly overwhelmed by the elaborate production surrounding their ceremony. His expression suggested someone who had agreed to a simple wedding celebration, without realizing it would evolve into a social extravaganza, requiring detailed coordination and precise timing. "Madison, sweetheart, maybe we should focus on the fact that we're getting married today rather than stressing about whether every flower is positioned perfectly," he suggested gently. Madison's response revealed the fundamental difference in their approaches to this celebration. "Tyler, this isn't just our wedding. This is the event that introduces me to your family's social circle and establishes our place in Nashville's community. Every detail matters because people will be evaluating everything from the menu selection to the entertainment coordination." Her perspective illuminated the pressure she felt to prove herself worthy of the Morrison family's acceptance, transforming what should have been a celebration of love into a performance of social competence. Madison had spent months orchestrating every element of this event to demonstrate that she understood the standards expected within Tyler's established social hierarchy. Patricia Morrison arrived with several other family members, her presence immediately commanding attention from both the venue staff and Madison's wedding party. She surveyed the ceremony preparation with an appraising eye, offering polite compliments while clearly conducting mental evaluations of how successfully Madison had executed the elaborate planning process. "Madison, dear, everything looks absolutely lovely," Patricia pronounced after completing her assessment. "You've done an admirable job coordinating so many complex elements." The approval carried weight beyond simple politeness, representing official Morrison family recognition that Madison had successfully navigated the sophisticated requirements of their social expectations. I watched my sister's posture relax slightly as she received this crucial validation from her future mother-in-law. "Emma, how nice to see you again," Patricia continued, turning toward me with a smile that contained professional warmth. "I've been looking forward to continuing our conversation about technology consulting services after the celebration." Her acknowledgement of my professional expertise in front of Madison's wedding party created an interesting moment of cognitive dissonance. The bridesmaids, who had previously heard only dismissive references to my computer work, seemed confused by Patricia Morrison's respectful tone and business-oriented interest in my career. Madison's maid of honor, a longtime friend named Jessica who worked as a social media manager for a local boutique, looked particularly puzzled. "Emma, I didn't realize you were involved in technology consulting. Madison always describes your work as more basic computer support." Before I could respond, Tyler interjected with information that surprised several people present. Emma founded Richardson Digital Solutions, the company that designed Morrison Financial Group's new digital banking platform. My father has been incredibly impressed with their innovative approach to traditional banking modernization. The revelation created a ripple of reassessment among Madison's wedding party as they processed the disconnect between my sister's characterization of my career and Tyler's description of my professional accomplishments. I could see mental calculations occurring as bridesmaids reconsidered their assumptions about family dynamics and social positioning. Madison's expression during this exchange revealed her struggle to reconcile multiple conflicting narratives about my professional status. She'd built her identity around being the successful sister who had achieved social advancement through strategic relationship building, while characterizing me as talented but limited in scope and ambition. Tyler's casual reference to my business achievements threatened the foundation of that carefully constructed self-image. "Tyler's exaggerating my company's significance," I said diplomatically, attempting to diffuse the tension I could see building in Madison's features. "We're fortunate to work with excellent clients like Morrison Financial Group, but today is about celebrating Madison and Tyler's marriage." Patricia Morrison studied this exchange with the sharp intelligence that had made her a formidable presence in Nashville's social circles for decades. Her expression suggested that she was filing away information about family dynamics for future reference, particularly regarding the complex relationship between her new daughter-in-law and the successful sister Madison had consistently downplayed. My parents finally appeared in the photography area, their expressions revealing the stress of whatever financial complications they'd been resolving with the club's administration. My father's usually confident demeanor seemed subdued, while my mother maintained her social smile with obvious effort. "Sorry for the delay," my mother announced cheerfully. "Just some minor paperwork details that needed clarification. Everything's resolved now, and we're ready for those family portraits." The photographer, a consummate professional who had likely witnessed countless family dramas during wedding celebrations, efficiently organized us for the formal pictures that would document this elaborate event. I found myself positioned at the edge of most compositions, fulfilling my designated role as the peripheral family member whose presence was acknowledged but not emphasized. During the photography session, I observed the careful choreography, of social positioning that governed every interaction. Madison commanded central attention as the bride, while Tyler's family members received deferential treatment reflecting their established social status. My parents navigated their role as the bride's family with visible anxiety about meeting unstated but clearly understood expectations for appropriate behavior. The ceremony itself unfolded with the precision Madison had demanded and the elegance she'd envisioned. Belle Meade Country Club's gardens provided a stunning backdrop for their exchange of vows, while the assembled guests represented a comprehensive survey of Nashville's social and business elite. I recognized numerous faces from professional, networking events, charity galas, and business conferences, people who knew me as the CEO of Richardson Digital Solutions rather than Madison's overlooked sister. From my assigned seat in the back quarter of the ceremony space, I watched Madison commit her future to Tyler with genuine joy and relief. Whatever complications surrounded the funding and planning of this event, her happiness in the moment appeared authentic and unguarded. For all her focus on social positioning and aesthetic perfection, Madison truly loved Tyler and was genuinely excited about building a life with him. Tyler's vows emphasized partnership and shared values, suggesting that he saw their marriage as a genuine collaboration rather than merely a social alliance. His sincerity provided hope that their relationship might transcend the complex family dynamics and expectations that had shaped their elaborate wedding celebration. The reception transition revealed Madison's careful planning and attention to detail as guests moved seamlessly from the ceremony garden to the elegant ballroom. Every element, from the cocktail selection to the musical entertainment, reflected sophisticated taste and substantial financial investment. The celebration looked exactly like the exclusive social event Madison had envisioned, worthy of the Morrison family's most discerning standards. I located my assigned table, number 12, positioned near the service entrance exactly as Madison had planned. My table mates included several other guests who had apparently been categorized as socially peripheral but obligatory invitees. The seating arrangement effectively segregated people who didn't fit Madison's vision of important social connections, while ensuring they remained technically included in the celebration. Interestingly, Table 12 also accommodated several guests whose professional accomplishments were substantial, but whose social prominence didn't align with Madison's networking priorities. A federal judge sat across from me, while a renowned surgeon occupied the chair to my left. Madison had inadvertently created a table of accomplished individuals who preferred substance over social positioning, making our exile from the central celebration ironically more intellectually stimulating than many of the priority tables. "I don't believe we've been introduced," the judge said, extending her hand. "I'm Rebecca Chen, District Court. And you are?" "Emma Richardson, the bride's sister. I own a technology consulting firm here in Nashville." The surgeon, Dr. Michael Torres, looked up with interest. "Richardson Digital Solutions? We use your healthcare management software at Vanderbilt Medical Center. Excellent system design." "I'm familiar with your firm's reputation as well," Judge Chen added. "Your digital court filing platform has significantly improved case management efficiency in our district." The conversation that developed at Table 12 provided fascinating contrast to the social climbing occurring at the more prominent tables. We discussed professional challenges, technological innovations, and policy implications with the kind of intellectual depth that Madison would have dismissed as inappropriate for wedding celebration, not understanding that some guests valued substantive conversation over surface-level networking. Meanwhile, I observed Madison's triumphant circulation among the important tables, accepting congratulations and basking in the successful execution of her social masterpiece. She moved with practiced confidence, confident that every detail reflected her sophisticated taste and organizational competence. Patricia Morrison's approving presence validated her achievement in meeting the Morrison family's exacting standards. The evening progressed with speeches that emphasized family unity and future prosperity. though I noted the careful editing that characterized my parents' comments about their daughters' respective accomplishments. Madison's achievements in event planning and her successful marriage to Tyler received detailed celebration, while my business success received polite acknowledgement without specific details that might complicate the family narrative they were maintaining. Tyler's speech included gracious thanks to both families for their support and contribution to the celebration, though I suspected he remained unaware of the true source of funding for his wedding reception. His genuine affection for Madison and respectful acknowledgement of our parents suggested that he viewed this marriage as a positive alliance between compatible families rather than a strategic social advancement. As the evening moved toward dancing and continued socializing, I found myself contemplating the complex web of deception and self-deception that had made this elaborate celebration possible. My parents had stolen my inheritance to fund Madison's dream wedding while maintaining the fiction that they were sacrificial parents, supporting their daughter's happiness. Madison had achieved her vision of social acceptance and romantic fulfillment without understanding the true cost of her perfect day. And I was observing it all from the periphery, the successful sister whose accomplishments had been simultaneously ignored and exploited to make the entire event possible. The band announced the first dance, and Madison and Tyler took the floor with practiced grace that suggested professional instruction. They looked genuinely happy together, lost in their private moment despite the crowd of observers documenting every gesture for posterity. Whatever complications surrounded their wedding planning and family dynamics, their connection appeared authentic and sustainable. I remained at table 12, declining several invitations to join the dancing, while engaging in continued conversation with my intellectually stimulating table mates. We discussed healthcare technology innovations, legal system modernization, and the changing landscape of professional services in Nashville's growing economy. The conversation provided exactly the kind of substantive networking that Madison had promised her wedding would offer, though she'd inadvertently facilitated it among the guests she considered least important. As the evening drew toward its conclusion, Patricia Morrison approached table 12 with an expression that suggested purposeful intention rather than casual socializing. Several of my table mates recognized her immediately, acknowledging her presence with the kind of respectful attention typically reserved for people whose social influence was both established and formidable. "Emma, I hope you've enjoyed the celebration," she said, pulling an empty chair closer to our table. "I wanted to thank you for the lovely conversation at Madison's dress fitting and confirm our Monday meeting to discuss expanded technology services for Morrison Financial Group." Her public acknowledgement of our upcoming business meeting, delivered in front of Judge Chen and Dr. Torres, effectively announced that she viewed me as a valuable professional contact worthy of her family's serious consideration. The gesture was simultaneously social courtesy and strategic positioning, demonstrating that Patricia Morrison recognized valuable business relationships regardless of family dynamics or seating arrangements. "I'm looking forward to our discussion," I replied professionally. "Richardson Digital Solutions has several innovative approaches that might benefit Morrison Financial Group's expansion goals." "Excellent. And Emma, please give my compliments to your parents. They should be very proud of both their daughters' accomplishments." The comment was delivered with diplomatic precision, acknowledging both Madison's successful wedding celebration and my professional achievements while subtly suggesting that perhaps our family's assessment of relative success might benefit from recalibration. Patricia Morrison had clearly recognized the disconnect between how my family treated me and how the broader professional community viewed my accomplishments. After she departed, Judge Chen observed with amusement, "Your family's social dynamics are quite complex, aren't they?" "Most families have interesting relationships," I replied diplomatically. "True, but not many families include siblings whose professional success creates such obvious cognitive dissonance," Dr. Torres added, thoughtfully. "Your sister seems genuinely surprised by the respect people show for your work." Their observations confirmed what I'd suspected throughout the evening. That my family's deliberate minimization of my accomplishments was obvious to outside observers, creating a situation that reflected more poorly on them than on me. People who encountered our family dynamics without prior context could easily recognize the gap between reality and the narrative my parents and Madison had constructed. As the reception wound down and guests began departing, I offered appropriate congratulations to Madison and Tyler, while maintaining the supportive sister role I'd played throughout their relationship. Madison appeared exhausted but triumphant, clearly satisfied with her successful navigation of such an elaborate social event. "Emma, thank you so much for being here and for everything Richardson Digital Solutions did to sponsor the reception," Madison said, embracing me with genuine warmth. "I know you probably think all this wedding stuff is silly, but it really means a lot that you supported my special day." Her gratitude for my company's sponsorship revealed that she still didn't understand the true relationship between the funding sources for her wedding celebration. In Madison's mind, Richardson Digital Solutions was a separate entity that had chosen to support her event, rather than my business providing payment for a celebration funded by my stolen inheritance. "I'm happy you had such a beautiful wedding," I replied sincerely. "You look genuinely happy with Tyler." "I am happy. And Emma, maybe now that things are settling down, we could spend more time together. Tyler's been saying we should get to know each other better as families, and Patricia Morrison seems to think you're much more interesting than I've given you credit for." The suggestion revealed Madison's beginning awareness that her long-held assumptions about our relative social and professional value might require adjustment. Patricia Morrison's obvious respect for my business accomplishments had introduced doubt into Madison's certainty about which sister had achieved more meaningful success. As I drove home through Nashville's quiet streets, I reflected on the strange comedy of errors that had defined Madison's wedding celebration. She had achieved her dream of marrying into social prominence and hosting an elegant reception that impressed the city's elite, all funded by my grandmother's money and sponsored by my company. She had proven her ability to execute sophisticated event planning while remaining completely unaware of who had actually made her perfect day financially possible. The real test would come in the following weeks, as Madison and Tyler settled into married life and my parents faced the reality of their financial decisions. The money was gone, spent on flowers and food and entertainment that would live on only in photographs and memories. Meanwhile, Richardson Digital Solutions would continue building value and employing people and serving clients, growing stronger despite the theft of funds intended for expansion. I had learned something valuable about family dynamics and personal resilience during this experience. My worth wasn't determined by my family's ability to acknowledge my accomplishments, and my success didn't require their validation to remain meaningful. Madison's wedding had been beautiful and joyful, and I was genuinely happy for her achievement in finding love and social acceptance, even if the cost had been my grandmother's legacy and my expansion plans. But I was also curious about how long my family could maintain their elaborate fiction about respectability and sacrifice once the bills came due, and the reality of their choices became impossible to ignore. 3 weeks after Madison's wedding, the first bill arrived at my parents' house. I know this because Madison called me in tears at 7 a.m, her newlywed bliss shattered by the harsh reality of wedding vendor invoices that apparently no one had expected. "Emma, I don't understand what's happening," she sobbed into the phone. "Mom and Dad said they had everything under control, but the florist is saying they have an outstanding balance of $12,000. And the caterer sent a notice about final payment for the reception dinner. I thought all of this was settled." I sat at my desk in Richardson Digital Solutions headquarters, watching Nashville's morning rush hour through floor-to-ceiling windows, while listening to my sister discover the consequences of financial decisions made with money that wasn't theirs to spend. The irony would have been amusing if it weren't so predictably tragic. "Madison, have you spoken with Mom and Dad about these bills?" "They're not answering their phones, and when I drove to the house yesterday, they weren't there." The neighbor, said they left for some kind of extended vacation, but they didn't mention anything about traveling when I spoke with them at the wedding. My parents' sudden disappearance suggested they had finally recognized the unsustainable nature of their financial situation. Having liquidated my inheritance to fund Madison's elaborate celebration, they apparently lacked the resources to cover additional expenses that emerged after the event. Rather than face the consequences of their theft and deception, they had chosen to temporarily abandon their responsibilities and leave Madison to navigate the resulting chaos. "Emma, you have to help me figure this out," Madison continued. "Tyler's parents are asking questions about the outstanding vendor payments, and it's embarrassing. Patricia Morrison mentioned that proper financial planning is essential for maintaining social reputation, and I'm terrified that these money problems will reflect poorly on our marriage." The situation had evolved beyond mere family dysfunction into a genuine crisis that threatened the social standing Madison had worked so desperately to achieve through her marriage to Tyler. Her worst fears about being exposed as financially inferior to the Morrison family were materializing through the very wedding celebration that was supposed to establish her worthiness. "Madison, I think you need to have an honest conversation with Tyler about the financial situation. He's your husband now, and partnership means sharing both celebrations and challenges. But I can't tell him that my parents might not be able to cover the wedding expenses. He'll think his family was right to question whether I really understood the responsibilities that come with being a Morrison." Her anguish revealed the depth of insecurity that had driven her wedding extravaganza, and her desperate need to prove herself worthy of Tyler's family's acceptance. Madison had built her identity around successful social positioning, and the collapse of that carefully constructed image felt like personal annihilation. "Madison, Tyler married you because he loves you, not because of your family's financial capacity. Real partnerships survive financial complications." Easy for you to say. You've never had to worry about living up to someone else's family's expectations. The bitter irony of her statement hung between us. While Madison struggled with vendor bills from a wedding funded by my stolen inheritance, I was building genuine relationships with the Morrison family based on professional merit and mutual respect. Tyler's parents valued my company's services and my expertise, not my ability to fund elaborate social events. After ending our conversation, I called my attorney David Brennan to discuss the evolving situation. "David, it appears my parents have disappeared rather than face the financial obligations they created by liquidating my trust fund. That's concerning, but not entirely surprising given the magnitude of their unauthorized financial commitments. Emma, have you reconsidered pursuing legal action? The pattern of behavior suggests this situation will only become more complicated without intervention." I had spent weeks weighing the costs and benefits of taking legal action against my parents. While I had clear grounds for criminal and civil charges related to forgery and theft, pursuing that path would destroy family relationships permanently, while likely providing minimal financial recovery. More importantly, public litigation would damage Richardson Digital Solutions' reputation and my relationships with clients who valued discretion and professional stability. David, I want you to prepare a comprehensive legal analysis of my options, including potential outcomes and timelines for different approaches, but I'm not ready to file any actions yet. Understood. I'll have a detailed report ready by the end of the week. Emma, you should also know that I've received inquiries from creditors and vendors trying to locate your parents for outstanding payments. The financial complications appear to be expanding beyond the wedding expenses. This development suggested that my parents' financial problems extended well beyond their appropriation of my inheritance. They had apparently used my grandmother's money to cover existing debts while creating new obligations through Madison's wedding expenses, ultimately making their situation unsustainable when additional bills arrived. My assistant Sarah appeared in my office doorway with an expression that suggested urgent business matters requiring attention. Emma, Patricia Morrison is here for your 10 o'clock meeting, but she's brought James Morrison with her as well. Should I prepare additional materials for a full board presentation? The unexpected inclusion of Tyler's father in our technology consulting discussion indicated that Morrison Financial Group was considering a more substantial partnership than originally anticipated. James Morrison's presence also suggested that our conversation might extend beyond technical services into broader strategic planning. Please set up the large conference room and prepare complete portfolio materials. And Sarah, could you bring refreshments appropriate for an extended business meeting? Patricia and James Morrison entered the conference room with the confident bearing of people accustomed to evaluating significant business proposals. Patricia's professional demeanor contrasted sharply with the social grace she'd displayed at Madison's wedding, while James projected the analytical intensity that had built Morrison Financial Group into one of Tennessee's most successful regional banks. Emma, thank you for accommodating this expanded meeting on short notice, Patricia began. After discussing your company's capabilities with our technical advisors, we realized that this conversation required James's direct involvement. James Morrison opened a leather portfolio filled with financial documents and strategic planning materials. Emma, we've been impressed with Richardson Digital Solutions' work on our digital banking platform, but we're interested in exploring a much larger partnership. We're considering a complete organizational technology transformation, and we'd like to discuss whether your firm could serve as our primary consulting partner. The proposal they outlined represented a multi-year consulting contract worth significantly more than the building purchase I'd been forced to abandon when my parents stole my inheritance. Morrison Financial Group wanted Richardson Digital Solutions to redesign their entire technological infrastructure, implement advanced security systems, and develop custom software solutions that would position them as Nashville's most innovative financial institution. This would require substantial expansion of your current operations, James continued. We're talking about a partnership that would likely double your staff and require significant additional facility space. Are you positioned to handle that level of growth? The question addressed exactly the expansion challenges I'd intended to solve through purchasing Heritage Tower with my grandmother's trust fund. Without that capital injection, Richardson Digital Solutions would need alternative financing strategies to pursue such an ambitious partnership opportunity. Mr. Morrison, the scope you're describing is exactly the kind of transformative project Richardson Digital Solutions was founded to pursue. We would need to evaluate our current capacity and develop a growth strategy that ensures excellent service delivery throughout the expansion process. Patricia and James exchanged a look that suggested they'd discussed this partnership extensively before proposing it to me. Emma, we're prepared to offer a retainer structure that would provide upfront capital to support your expansion planning. This isn't just a consulting contract, but a genuine business partnership. Their offer would solve the financial challenges created by my parents' theft while providing Richardson Digital Solutions with the growth opportunity I'd been developing for years. The partnership would establish my company as Morrison Financial Group's technology partner, while generating revenues that far exceeded the value of my stolen inheritance. I'm extremely interested in exploring this partnership. Would it be possible to schedule a follow-up meeting where I can present detailed expansion plans and implementation strategies? Absolutely, James replied. In fact, we'd like to invite you to present to our full board of directors next month. This partnership represents a strategic investment in Nashville's technology sector, and our board wants to evaluate it comprehensively. As they prepared to leave, Patricia made an observation that revealed their perspective on our business relationship. Emma, James, and I were discussing how refreshing it is to work with someone who combines technical expertise with genuine business acumen. Too many consultants excel in one area while lacking depth in the other. After they departed, I sat in the conference room contemplating the extraordinary turn of events. My parents' theft of my inheritance had temporarily disrupted my expansion plans, but the Morrison family's respect for my professional capabilities had led to an opportunity far greater than I'd originally envisioned. Richardson Digital Solutions would not merely purchase a building, but transform into Nashville's premier technology consulting firm through a partnership with one of the region's most respected financial institutions. My phone buzzed with another call from Madison, though her tone had shifted from morning hysteria to confused curiosity. Emma? The strangest thing just happened. Tyler's father called to congratulate us on having such accomplished family connections. He said something about Richardson Digital Solutions signing a major partnership with Morrison Financial Group. The speed with which information traveled through Nashville's business community never ceased to amaze me. Word of our expanded partnership discussion had apparently reached Tyler within hours of the meeting conclusion, likely through James Morrison's enthusiastic communication with his son about the new business opportunity. Madison, Richardson Digital Solutions is discussing expanded consulting services with Morrison Financial Group. It's still in preliminary stages, but it could represent a significant partnership for both companies. Emma, I'm so confused about your business. Tyler keeps telling me things about your company that don't match what I thought I knew about your work. He says Richardson Digital Solutions is becoming one of Nashville's most influential technology firms, and his father thinks you're some kind of business genius. Madison's confusion reflected the years of deliberate ignorance our family had maintained about my professional accomplishments. They had convinced themselves that my success was limited and peripheral, but the Morrison family's respect for my work was forcing her to reconsider those assumptions. Madison, I've been trying to tell our family about Richardson Digital Solutions. Growth for years. The information was always available if anyone had been interested in learning about it. But why didn't you make it clearer that your company was important? You always talked about it like it was just a small consulting business. Her question revealed the fundamental communication breakdown that had characterized our family relationships. I had shared details about my business achievements regularly, but my family had trained themselves not to hear information that contradicted their established narrative about our respective roles and capabilities. Madison, I mentioned in December that Richardson Digital Solutions was named Nashville Business Journal's fastest-growing technology firm. I told Mom and Dad about our contract with the state healthcare system in February. I shared news about our Incure magazine profile at Easter dinner. The information was there if anyone had chosen to pay attention. A long silence followed as Madison processed this alternate version of family communication history. I honestly don't remember those conversations. Maybe I was distracted by wedding planning, or maybe I didn't understand how significant those achievements were. While we were speaking, Sarah appeared in my office with an urgent expression and a folder, labeled with Morrison Financial Group's logo. She placed it on my desk with a note indicating that a courier had delivered it with instructions for immediate attention. Madison, I need to handle some business correspondence. We can continue this conversation later. After ending our call, I opened the Morrison Financial Group folder to find a formal letter of intent outlining the partnership terms we'd discussed, along with a proposed timeline for board presentation and contract finalization. The document represented the most significant business opportunity Richardson Digital Solutions had ever received, transforming my company from successful regional firm to major technology consulting partnership. More interesting than the business proposal was a handwritten note from Patricia Morrison attached to the formal documentation. Emma, James and I want you to know how much we respect your professional integrity and business vision. We look forward to a long and mutually beneficial partnership. Also, please don't hesitate to reach out if you need any assistance with family matters. We understand that business success sometimes creates unexpected challenges in personal relationships. Her offer of support regarding family matters suggested that Patricia Morrison had recognized the disconnect between my professional reputation and my treatment within our family structure. Like Judge Chen and Dr. Torres at Madison's wedding, she had observed our family dynamics and understood that my parents and sister significantly undervalued my accomplishments and contributions. The remainder of that week passed in intensive preparation for the expanded Morrison Financial Group partnership, including strategic planning sessions with my senior staff and consultations with business development specialists. Richardson Digital Solutions would need to triple its workforce and quadruple its office space to accommodate the proposed partnership scope, requiring exactly the kind of careful expansion planning I'd intended to pursue with my grandmother's inheritance. Friday evening brought another crisis call from Madison, though this time her distress stemmed from a different source of family complications. Emma, Mom, and Dad are back from their mysterious vacation, but they're not returning my calls about the wedding vendor bills. When I went to their house, they looked terrible. Dad seemed scared, and Mom kept talking about how expensive everything has become. The description suggested that my parents had spent their disappearance time confronting the reality of their financial situation, having stolen my inheritance to fund Madison's wedding while managing other existing debts. They had probably discovered that their temporary escape from creditors had only delayed inevitable consequences. Madison, it sounds like Mom and Dad are dealing with serious financial problems that extend beyond wedding expenses. But what am I supposed to tell the vendors? The florist is threatening to take legal action, and the caterer sent a final notice about payment. Tyler's asking questions I can't answer, because I don't understand how we went from having everything paid for to owing thousands of dollars. Her confusion remained profound, because she still didn't understand the true source of funding for her wedding celebration. Madison believed our parents had used their own savings or retirement funds to pay for her reception, not realizing that every penny had come from my grandmother's trust that legally belonged to me. Madison, I think it's time for you to have a complete conversation with Mom and Dad about their financial situation and the true source of funding for your wedding. What do you mean, the true source of funding? They told me they'd been saving for years to give me a beautiful wedding. The moment had arrived when the elaborate fiction my family had constructed around Madison's wedding expenses would finally collapse under the weight of unpaid bills and financial reality. Madison would discover that her fairy tale celebration had been funded through theft of my inheritance, while my parents would face the consequences of their unauthorized appropriation of money intended for my business development. Madison, I think you should ask Mom and Dad to explain exactly where the money for your wedding came from. Ask them about Grandmother Eleanor's trust fund. A sharp intake of breath indicated that Madison was beginning to understand the implications of my suggestion. Emma, you don't mean... And they didn't use your inheritance for my wedding, did they? I think that's a conversation you need to have with our parents. Hours later, Madison called back in a state of shock that made her earlier wedding vendor panic seem inconsequential. By comparison, Emma, I confronted Mom and Dad about the trust fund, and they admitted everything. They took your inheritance money and spent it on my wedding without telling you or asking your permission. Her discovery of the truth created a new dynamic between us, forcing Madison to confront the reality that her perfect day had been built on foundations of deception and financial theft. The social triumph she'd celebrated for weeks was now tainted by the knowledge that every beautiful detail had been purchased with money stolen from her sister. Emma, I had no idea. I swear to you, I thought they were using their own savings. If I'd known the money came from your trust fund, I never would have let them spend it on my wedding. Madison's distress seemed genuine, reflecting her horror at discovering she'd been an unwitting participant in the appropriation of my inheritance. While she had dismissed my professional accomplishments and minimized my business success, she apparently retained enough integrity to be appalled by the theft of my grandmother's legacy. Madison, I believe you didn't know, but the money is gone, spent on your celebration, and our parents will need to face the consequences of their choices. But what about the vendor bills? And what about making this right with you? How can I possibly repay everything they spent on my wedding using your money? Her questions revealed the practical impossibility of truly resolving the financial damage my parents had created. The wedding had consumed hundreds of thousands of dollars that couldn't be returned, while the additional vendor bills created new obligations that my parents clearly couldn't meet. Over the weekend, the full scope of my parents' financial mismanagement became apparent through a series of revelations that Madison shared during multiple emotional conversations. They had used portions of my inheritance to cover existing debt payments and living expenses, while spending the majority on wedding vendors. When additional bills arrived after the celebration, they lacked resources to cover the remaining obligations. Moreover, my parents had apparently borrowed money against their house to cover some pre-wedding expenses, creating mortgage obligations they couldn't sustain on my father's hardware store income and my mother's part-time bookkeeping work. Their financial problems extended far beyond the appropriation of my trust fund into a comprehensive crisis that threatened their home ownership and long-term stability. Monday morning brought my board presentation to Morrison Financial Group's directors, an opportunity to showcase Richardson Digital Solutions' capabilities while securing the partnership that would define my company's future growth. Despite the family chaos surrounding my parents' financial collapse, I maintained complete professional focus on the most important business meeting of my career. The Morrison Financial Group boardroom contained 12 directors representing various aspects of Nashville's business and financial community. Several faces were familiar from professional networking events, while others represented the kind of traditional financial leadership that had built Tennessee's banking industry over generations. James Morrison provided an introduction that demonstrated his enthusiasm for the proposed partnership. Colleagues, Emma Richardson has built Richardson Digital Solutions into Tennessee's most innovative technology consulting firm. We're proposing a comprehensive partnership that would position Morrison Financial Group as the Southeast's leader in digital banking innovation. My presentation covered technical capabilities, strategic vision, implementation timelines, and financial projections for the expanded partnership. I demonstrated how Richardson Digital Solutions could transform Morrison Financial Group's customer experience while improving operational efficiency and security standards. The discussion that followed revealed genuine excitement among board members about the proposed collaboration. Dr. Sarah Williams, who headed Morrison Financial Group's Technology Committee, asked the question that addressed my company's capacity for rapid expansion. Ms. Richardson, this partnership would require doubling your workforce and significantly expanding your operational facilities. How quickly could Richardson Digital Solutions scale to meet these demands? Dr. Williams, we've developed detailed expansion plans that could accommodate the proposed partnership scope within 18 months. The growth strategy includes strategic hiring, expanded office space, and enhanced technology infrastructure that would support both current clients and new partnership obligations. After 2 hours of detailed discussion and technical evaluation, the board voted unanimously to approve the partnership, subject to final contract negotiations and legal review. The decision represented not only a transformative business opportunity for Richardson Digital Solutions, but also validation of my professional vision and strategic planning capabilities. As board members departed, Patricia Morrison approached with congratulations that extended beyond business courtesy. Emma, this partnership represents exactly the kind of innovative thinking Nashville's business community needs. We're excited about the possibilities this collaboration will create. James Morrison added his perspective on the broader implications of our partnership. Emma, this relationship positions both our companies at the forefront of regional technology development. We see Richardson Digital Solutions as more than a vendor, but as a genuine strategic partner in our future growth. Their enthusiasm and respect provided stark contrast to my family's consistent minimization of my business achievements. While my parents had stolen my inheritance and Madison had dismissed my career as unimportant computer work, Nashville's financial leadership recognized my company as an innovator worthy of major partnership investment. That afternoon, I received an unexpected visit from Madison and Tyler, who arrived at Richardson Digital Solutions offices without appointment, but with obvious intentions for serious conversation. Sarah led them to my office, where their expressions revealed the gravity of whatever they wanted to discuss. Emma, we need to talk about everything that's happened with the wedding expenses and the family financial situation, Madison began, without preamble. Tyler and I have been discussing possible solutions, and we want to propose something that might help resolve the immediate crisis. Tyler spoke with the measured tone of someone who had carefully considered multiple options before arriving at a conclusion. Emma, Madison explained the situation with your inheritance and our parents' financial problems. We can't undo what happened, but we want to offer a partial solution. They proceeded to outline a proposal that demonstrated both Madison's newfound understanding of our family's financial manipulations and Tyler's commitment to addressing wrongdoing within his new extended family. They offered to assume responsibility for all outstanding wedding vendor bills, preventing further damage to my parents' credit and reputation. Additionally, they proposed establishing a structured repayment plan that would gradually compensate me for a portion of my stolen inheritance. Madison insisted that we take responsibility for making this situation right, Tyler explained. Even though she didn't know the money came from your trust fund, she feels terrible about benefiting from her parents' theft of your inheritance. Madison's participation in this solution represented remarkable personal growth from the sister, who had consistently dismissed my accomplishments while appropriating my family's resources for her own advancement. Her willingness to sacrifice some of her newfound financial security with Tyler to address the wrongs done to me suggested genuine maturity and developing integrity. I appreciate that offer, Madison, but the financial damage extends far beyond the wedding expenses, and ultimately, the responsible parties should be the ones who made unauthorized use of my inheritance. Emma, Madison said quietly, Mom and Dad don't have the money to pay you back or cover the remaining vendor bills. They're talking about selling the house, and even that might not be enough to resolve their debt situation. The conversation continued for nearly an hour as we explored various approaches to addressing the financial crisis my parents had created through their theft and mismanagement. While Madison and Tyler's offer provided one potential solution, the broader implications of family relationships and long-term consequences required careful consideration. As they prepared to leave, Madison made an observation that suggested how profoundly these revelations had affected her perspective on our family dynamics. Emma, I'm beginning to understand that I've been wrong about many things, including how successful your business really is and how badly our parents have treated you over the years. Tyler added his own assessment of the situation with diplomatic tact. Emma, Madison's been learning a lot about family relationships and the importance of recognizing everyone's contributions. We both hope that somehow this difficult situation might lead to better understanding between everyone involved. After they departed, I reflected on the strange journey that had brought us to this point. My parents had stolen my inheritance to fund Madison's dream wedding, inadvertently creating the financial crisis that would force our family to confront years of deliberate blindness about my professional success and personal worth. Madison's social triumph had been built on stolen money, while my supposed professional limitations had been exposed as family fiction when measured against external recognition of my accomplishments. The theft of my inheritance had temporarily disrupted my expansion plans, but had ultimately led to the Morrison Financial Group partnership that promised far greater growth than I'd originally envisioned. My parents' betrayal had backfired spectacularly, providing me with business opportunities that proved my professional value while forcing my family to acknowledge truths they'd spent years avoiding. Most importantly, Madison's discovery of how her wedding had been funded seemed to have shattered her illusions about family fairness and social positioning. For the first time, she was seeing our parents' treatment of me with clear eyes, recognizing the pattern of favoritism and exploitation that had shaped our family dynamics for decades. The following week brought resolution to several aspects of the crisis that had been building since Madison's wedding. My parents, faced with mounting creditor pressure and the collapse of their financial schemes, agreed to sell their house and use the proceeds to establish a formal repayment plan for my stolen inheritance. While this wouldn't immediately restore the full amount of my grandmother's trust fund, it represented acknowledgement of their theft and commitment to eventual restitution. Madison and Tyler followed through on their commitment to cover all outstanding wedding vendor bills, preventing legal action against my parents while demonstrating their integrity in addressing the financial complications surrounding their celebration. Their marriage appeared stronger for having navigated this crisis together, with Tyler's respect for Madison seemingly enhanced by her insistence on taking responsibility for family wrongdoing. Most significantly, Richardson Digital Solutions. Partnership with Morrison Financial Group moved forward with contract finalization and implementation planning that would transform my company into Nashville's largest technology consulting firm. The stolen inheritance that was to fund building purchase had been replaced by partnership capital that would support expansion far beyond my original vision. On a quiet Saturday morning, 3 months after Madison's wedding, I sat in what would become Richardson Digital Solutions' new headquarters, reviewing architectural plans for office space that would accommodate our tripled workforce. Patricia Morrison had been right about business success, creating unexpected challenges in personal relationships, but she had also proven that professional recognition and genuine accomplishment transcended family dysfunction and social positioning games. My parents' theft of my inheritance had been intended to elevate Madison's social standing while keeping me in a subordinate family role. Instead, their crime had catalyzed a series of events that demonstrated my professional value to Nashville's business community while forcing our family to confront the unsustainable nature of their deliberate blindness about my accomplishments. Madison had achieved her dream of marrying into social prominence, though the celebration of that achievement had been forever tainted by the knowledge of how it was financed. Tyler's family had welcomed her into their social circle while simultaneously developing respect for her previously overlooked sister's business achievements. Our grandmother Eleanor's legacy lived on, not in the trust fund my parents had stolen, but in the technology consulting empire I'd built and the partnerships that would ensure its continued growth. The money she'd saved for my business development had been misappropriated, but her influence on my character and values had created something more enduring than any financial inheritance. Most importantly, I had learned that my worth as a person and professional wasn't dependent on my family's ability to acknowledge my accomplishments. While their recognition and validation would have been welcome, their failure to provide it didn't diminish the reality of what I'd achieved or the respect I commanded among peers and clients. As I locked up the future Richardson Digital Solutions headquarters and walked to my car, I felt profound gratitude for the unexpected journey that had brought me to this point. My parents' betrayal had been painful, but it had ultimately liberated me from seeking approval from people who were incapable of recognizing my true value. Madison's social triumph had been built on theft, but her discovery of that truth had begun a process of personal growth that might eventually lead to genuine sisterly relationship. The girl who had been seated at table 12 beside the kitchen, Doors had built something far more valuable than social positioning or family approval. Richardson Digital Solutions stood as testament to vision, hard work, and integrity that no one could steal or diminish, regardless of their relationship to me or their ability to understand what I'd accomplished. Nashville's skyline stretched before me as I drove home, filled with buildings that housed businesses my company had helped transform through innovative technology solutions. My grandmother's inheritance had been stolen, but her true legacy grew stronger every day through the work I did and the lives my company touched. And tomorrow would bring new opportunities to build, serve, and succeed, independent of family dysfunction but strengthened by the clarity that crisis had provided about what truly mattered in both business and life. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.